In 2014, Taylor Swift's Girl Squad was inescapable. If Swift were to enter a public forum, it seemed like there was always a gaggle of red carpet-ready starlets by her side. On tour, Swift was known to bring out her famous friends on stage for live cameos, and her squad era was forever cemented in the Bad Blood music video. The group was a revolving door of some of Hollywood's most beautiful and talented ingenues. There was Karlie Kloss, model turned coder turned Kushner. There was Lorde, high schooler turned pop star turned voice of a generation. There was Selena Gomez, Cara Delevingne, Hailee Steinfeld, the Haim sisters, Lena Dunham, Gigi Hadid, and a handful of Victoria's Secret angels. To put it simply, Taylor Swift's friend group was #SquadGoals. I was randomly thinking about this group the other day and how squad goals is virtually absent from the online lexicon now. It's not like Taylor's friend group spontaneously combusted, there wasn't really any drama or news about the end of it. It sort of just slowly faded out of the cultural zeitgeist. Taylor Swift simply stopped showing up to award shows with 15 of her closest friends. While the notion of squad goals isn't completely dead, in the past couple of years, especially in the pandemic era, I feel like there's been an influx of content relating to the solo experience. From solo travelers to living alone vlogs to taking oneself on a date content. When you feel alone or lonely, this is the kind of content that you'd be inclined to turn to, especially if you can't see anyone else. I also feel like many celebrities, content creators, and influencers realize that there are certain ramifications that come with sharing too much of their interpersonal relationships with followers. If a friend hasn't turned up in an Instagram post for a few weeks, people may begin to speculate a falling out. A seemingly innocuous clip in a vlog could be fodder for overanalyzing a relationship on the back roads of Reddit. Of course, friend group content still exists, but I feel like internet culture has shifted towards valuing vulnerability. In 2015, Instagram was where you went to prove you have friends, and in 2022, it's still that same place, except it's equally socially acceptable to post a crying selfie and detail how alone you feel to hundreds of followers. It's definitely too sweeping of a generalization to say that we as a society no longer value friendship, especially because the appeal of a squad like Taylor's largely came from their collective beauty and fame. But it was striking that, for once, the media narrative surrounding Taylor Swift wasn't concerned with who she was dating, but who she was friends with. In our culture, platonic relationships tend to stand in the shadow of romantic ones. Even though there's plenty of friend group representation in film and TV, it's clear that representation of romantic relationships takes precedence, or at least people are more vocal about looking for the Jim to their Pam, the Rachel to their Ross, or even the Big to their Carrie. So in today's video, I just want to have a very casual, candid, unscripted conversation about my experiences and thoughts on friendship. Before we get into that though, I'd like to thank Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service. You choose a new designer fragrance to try every month for just $17, no surprises. It's a great way to discover new fragrances before committing to a full-size bottle. I've never had a signature smell, but I've always loved the idea of being a girl with a scent. You know how like every girl in a romance novel is described as having hair that smells like raspberries and farts that smell like peaches? I want to be that girl. I want to be the girl with a scent. Like if I walk in a room, it's like she is here. If I leave a room, it's like she was here. So it's been super fun to experiment with some new fragrances from Scentbird. I got Candy by Prada, which is a very fun everyday scent that has notes of caramel and vanilla. I also received Just Bloom by Story Venezian, a very floral scent that features gardenia and lily of the valley. It kind of reminds me of that classic comforting grandma smell. I also got Au Naturel by Christian Siriano. This is a much more of a citrus vibe with notes of mandarin and peach nectar. And lastly, Crystal Noir by Versace, a darker, moodier scent with notes of fig for when you're feeling a bit emo. Make sure to click the link below and use my code Amanda55 for 55% off your first month at Scentbird. That's only about $8 for your first month. Also, some exciting news for Canadian viewers, Scentbird is now available in Canada. Okay, so let's get back to friendship. So like I was saying, this video is going to be way more casual and candid and raw and unscripted than my other type of videos, which is honestly really weird because for the past like 2 years I've always been scripting my videos, so I know exactly what I'm gonna say, but I actually like started to realize that I was like, whoa, like I feel like I can't film if I don't literally have the exact words in front of me, which is like fine, but it's also just weird because that is really not how I started YouTube, and I think it can honestly make me overthink it a lot too. So I think this will be a fun little video, whatever. I hope you guys like this style of video too. I'm gonna break down this video by my relationship with friendship in different eras of my life, starting with the elementary years. So my main thought about friendship in those years was, why does everyone have a best friend except for me? This was the era of justice supremacy. You could not escape those metallic lacy camisole tank tops. You could not escape the sequins. You could not escape like those weird shirts with monkeys on them. It was that time. Also, you could not escape the Justice best friend merch. Justice had like so many pieces of clothing and jewelry that were like all best friend related, like, you know, those little hearts with each person gets a half, friendship bracelets, those shirts that like point to the other person that's like, that's my BFF or whatever. I was like, why don't I have like a person to do this with? That was my main qualm with the notion of friendship, I guess, back then. But honestly, I would say in that time of my life, my school friends were really just school friends. Like I, you know, rarely saw people outside of school for like play dates or whatever. Like I can really count the time on my hands that like I would go hang out with someone outside of school. I don't know, I just had like a bunch of school friends, and I, you know, pretty superficial relationships. I don't really know. I guess people can have deep relationships when, you know, you're a kid, but it was pretty surface level. And I also had a few friends outside of school, like family friends, really. And I would say those were probably who I would consider my closer friends because they had, I guess, like much more similar backgrounds to me. They were, you know, all Black, usually from immigrant families, grew up Christian too. So I felt like they had a lot more similarities to me than, you know, the people who I went to school with. I guess like my main theme of elementary school friendship was like, I was sort of surface level friends with my friends from school, but I felt like I had much, you know, closer relationships to my family friends. But I did always feel like, I was like, why does everyone at my school have a best friend? Like everyone has like their go-to partner or whatever. And I never really felt like I had that, which is something that has definitely continued on into my life. I felt that way. So the next stage of my friendship life was the middle school years. My middle school years were totally defined by like internet culture and internet friends and, you know, being in fandoms and having parasocial relationships with the people that I stand. Like I truly remember, you know, being in school some days and being like, oh, I can't wait to go home so I can like log on to Twitter and Instagram and like go back to the real world where my friends are on the internet. But I truly feel like that was like my defining experience, just like being holed up in my room and chatting to strangers with similar interests on the internet. Onto my high school years, I feel like that was, especially in early high school, a similar theme of just like being super immersed in stan culture. I was very much, you know, in fandoms and you know, made internet friends, especially into high school. But I would say that I actually got closer with like real people. And especially that changed when, you know, when I could drive and when I had friends who could drive and who had cars, because then it wasn't like, you know, I need to ask my parents to bring me somewhere, which I never really wanted to do because they were like too busy. So I didn't hang out with people outside of school a lot. And that didn't really bother me, but I don't know, once I had a friend who could drive and have her own car, I feel like that really increased my social life, and I was just, I don't know, able to hang out with people outside of school, which I had previously very, very rarely done. For the first time, I could hang out with people on weekends or like go on a day trip, because we just sort of had a newfound level of freedom with being able to drive. And I have some really, really great memories with my high school friends, and a lot of my earlier vlogs were because I was like doing stuff with my friends, and that was like hanging out with my friends outside of school was like, I felt like the only somewhat interesting thing that I would be doing, the only like vlog worthy thing to do. So it's really cool that a lot of those, or a few of those moments were, I have saved to my YouTube channel for the foreseeable future. Those were like kind of my experiences with, friendship before college. It was never really something that I felt like was a big aspect of my life. I think because one, I was, focused on school a lot, and I just feel like when I went home, I wasn't like, oh, I really wish I could hang out with my friends. It was just like, I gotta do my homework, I guess. But coming into college, it was a totally, totally different experience. And I feel like this is where I've really learned about myself and friendship more, was going to college. College was the turning point for me, where friendship became like a key, pillar of my life. I felt like it wasn't like a key pillar of my life in those previous years. Like it was kind of like, I was like, I don't know, I'll just like see the people I know at school. Like it wasn't something I felt like I needed to put any sort of effort into. But college, it was like a little bit of a different story. Before I went to college, I was obsessed with watching college vloggers. I used to watch Catherine a lot. Shout out Catherine. I loved watching Kath in college, and she was so known for her amazing vlogs that featured her friends. It was honestly kind of like watching a sitcom, because it was really like a cast of characters. Those videos aren't up anymore, but if you watch Kath in college, and I kind of like, I feel like especially from her videos, those were very influential on me. I feel like I realized that, if I don't have a friend group in college, or at least if I don't have like, a great social life, like that is 90% of college. Like that's 90% of what makes it enjoyable and why you go. So I think I kind of went in with that idea of like, I really need to put myself out there, because I had always been a very shy, quiet, introverted kid with like not a ton of friends, which I didn't mind, but I was definitely like, if I act this way in college, I'm gonna probably be really disappointed. So I feel like it was definitely the first time that I really put myself out there, and sort of where I began having this mindset of like, I will basically say yes to anything once. I totally put myself out there a lot, I would say, in freshman year of college, and I met more people probably than I ever had in my life, and, made a lot of acquaintances and a lot of friends too. It wasn't like super easy though. I feel like definitely in the beginning, in the first semester, I felt that feeling of like, oh, I feel like everyone has a best friend or a friend group, and everyone else is really enjoying their lives according to their Instagram stories. And even though I had fun, I was like, oh, but I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to parties. Like, how do you go there? As college went on, I definitely always kept that same mindset of like, I need to keep on putting myself out there. I need to keep on meeting people. There are never enough friends or people I should know and stuff. And I feel like eventually by the time I got to graduation, I felt very, very lucky to have a lot of great friends and even, quite a few acquaintances. I don't know, it was really just a weird moment of like being at graduation and like feeling like I had like collected a lot of relationships that I never would have imagined that I would have had starting out in college. And here are like some of my reflections of things that I've learned about friendship in college, because that's really when I've like learned the most about friendship. One, I felt very lucky to have a few friends who were connector friends, meaning that they were the type of friends to introduce you to their friends, and like they were the type of friends to like host things and bring people from different corners of their lives into one space and be like, mingle. Personally, that does not come naturally to me at all, even though it is something that I want to try to be better at. But I felt very lucky to have a few of these friends in college because it was a way that I got to meet like way more people because I don't know, they were just so open and generous with the people in their lives. Another thing about my social life in college, I felt very lucky to I was making college videos, I was a college YouTuber. It was really interesting that quite often people would know me before I knew them because they had seen me on YouTube. And I felt like very lucky that was like sort of a conversation starter that I had, and that led me to like meet more people. And this is kind of funny because I remember I was in like middle school, and I think I like made a middle school advice video, and one of my like advice for like making friends was like, wear t-shirts with your favorite band on it so people will approach you and talk to you. And okay, honestly, I still feel like that's like a good way to like initiate socialization. Basically just like, I know this sounds so weird, but like basically making your like brand known to people so that you can attract the right kind of people. Essentially like just like being yourself so you can attract people who are similar to your vibe. I think the most detrimental thing that you can do when you're like trying to make friendships, or at least genuine friendships, is to try to be liked by everyone. Like, I don't know, if you try to like flatten your personality and just like make yourself seem generic enough that you agree with everyone, I feel like that limits you from like finding people who are truly on your wavelength. I also realized like a huge factor in just like friendship, especially in college, is just the sheer fact that you have probably like more freedom with your time than you ever have in any other scenario, and you just like live basically so close to everyone you know. Like just the social ease of that, I feel like makes it so much easier to make friendships and to maintain them, because it's like you'll see people like by going to the same class every week or by going to the same club every week or something. It's like, I don't know, the maintenance of friendships and making time to see people, I feel like is just, it's not as hard in college because everyone's basically in the same place and everyone has a lot of free time. And this is kind of where it changes into adulthood. People move away, people move to different cities. Also, people have jobs. So you're kind of left with like the main free time that you have is after work or on the weekends. So this brings me to friendship in the post-grad timeline. I only graduated like 5 months ago, so I don't have a ton of experience in this realm yet. I feel like in a way it's kind of like starting from that square one of like where you have to make so much of an effort to be friends with people, and then it can kind of get into that more habitual type of routine. But yeah, it's like really hard if you don't live super close to your friends, if you live in a different city. Even if you live in the same city, like it's just not as easy to make plans when people have to, work around their work schedules and other responsibilities. Even though a lot of my friends have moved out of New York City, I do feel really lucky to be in a place there's a lot of people that I went to school with are still here. And also, I feel really lucky to have a community of internet friends who I've been able to meet in real life with fellow content creators. So I'm definitely like still in the midst of this era on friendships, so I don't have a lot of, conclusions about it yet, except to say that like, I don't know, it's just really important to, be intentional and, put an effort to see people that you want in your life. So I figured I'll finish off this video on the note of like advice. I don't want to like call it advice because I'm not an expert, but how about just like things I've learned? Okay. Number one, things I've learned about this is like very logistical, practical. Like if you want to hang out with someone, you know, reach out to them, but say a time and a place. Say, hey, would you want to grab coffee at Tuesday at 4 p.m. at this location? I feel like it makes it so much easier to actually follow through on a plan and like make it happen, than if you say, hey, do you want to hang out soon? And then it's like, when are you free? When are you free? What should we do? Where should we go? I feel like if you kind of like take on that labor of scheduling and choosing a location, it makes it much easier for someone to simply say, yes, I'll be there. Or could we actually do 5 p.m. or whatever? I feel like that just like makes it so much simpler. And I don't know, that is sometimes like half the trouble of even getting to see someone is like scheduling. So that's a tip. Another tip I've learned too, and this is something I realized when I was like taking this intro to philosophy class and learning about Aristotle's theory on friendships. When you are in a friendship, you basically have to expect nothing. I know that sounds like crazy. Obviously, it doesn't mean to, you know, accept being treated poorly. But it means that, like, I don't know, if you do something kind for someone, if you're there for someone, you're doing it because you want to do that fully, not because you're expecting something in return. I feel like when it comes to friendships, if you have the expectation for something and it's kind of like transactional, you're kind of just like always tallying like things up in your head, and it never like makes for an earnest good friendship. I feel like people can sort of fall into this pattern of being like, oh, last time I asked them to hang out, so maybe I should wait for them to ask me to hang out, you know, stuff like that. And I feel like people can like read into that too much, and I feel like I've definitely been there at some points, but I finally gotten to the point where I'm like, you know, if I want to see someone and they make me really happy and I like talking to them, I might as well just reach out and like not try to play mind games, because no one can read your mind. If you want something or if you feel a certain way, you definitely just have to say it, which is something I have been learning. So yeah, that's something I'd also recommend. Like, if you feel like, you know, you're like making new friends and you're like, oh, but they're not really reaching out to me, like maybe I shouldn't reach out to them, maybe they don't like me, I would say 9 out of 10 times you're overthinking it way too much, and people are more than flattered to be asked to be hung out with. And then I would say one of my last tips for friendship, especially in, you know, the post-grad era, is, you know, to take a little page from college and just, you know, have productivity, have work time with friends. Like, you know, if you work from home, like go to a coffee shop and do work with your friend. I feel like this is super underrated because I did this last week with one of my friends and I was like, whoa, that was like so great that we could just like be in the same space but also kind of focus on our own thing, and like in between like little downtime we can just like chat or whatever. Anyway, I've been rambling for a hot minute, so I am going to end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed the style. Let me know if there's other videos you would like to see in this style, or generally what else you want to see. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!